time for, we got the recording started, so thank you so much. I'd like to introduce Lupita Fabregas from Missouri 4-H to get us started with our sharing this morning. So, Lupita.
Hi, thank you, Wade, and thank you for organizing this. I think it's very important for us to share what we are doing. So I just want to introduce you to Ty Peckman, who is our state and natural ag specialist, and to Chelsea Corney. She is a CES in Saline County, and Blake Gassolaway, that he is the CES, that is Community Engagement Specialist in the South, in Pettis County, and he has other counties, but I don't remember, to tell you the truth. So these are part of the team, and Chelsea and Blake were the leaders of the team that make in a weekend to switch from face-to-face programming to an internet-based programming. That is, they are the creators of 4-H, Missouri 4-H Live, so they are going to be sharing with you what we do.
Well, good morning, everyone. Like Lupita said, my name is Ty Peckman. I'm here with Chelsea and Blake from Missouri. Really want to give them props for stepping up and pivoting really fast to a little alternative form of programming whenever we were kind of in a tumultuous time. If you can see here on my screen, we're just going to give a little bit of a brief overview on where we stand kind of with our 4-H Live online learning program. I'm going to let Chelsea kind of talk you through a little bit of the a little summary on this program itself and what it's kind of taken shape and evolved into. Also, for some reference here, I've kind of given some metrics where we stand as of today on some of our Facebook metrics for this program. So Chelsea, you want to go ahead and share about how this came to be?
Sure, absolutely. Thank you all for having us this morning. My name is Chelsea Corkins. 4-H Live began as a way to assist our project volunteers and families as they transitioned into this unforeseen time. Our videos really were kind of meant to fill some of the gaps of what project leaders might not be able to supplement, or they might not have time, or whether that's internet access to really reach our youth. So we did some livestock videos. Ty will talk about one, and I'll talk about one briefly here, to get our kids involved, to keep our kids involved, to let them know 4-H is still here. So we began live. Then as we moved out of our offices, as many of us did across the country, we transitioned to what's called Facebook Premiere. It gives us the same interactive nature that you get with Facebook Live, kind of like going to a midnight premiere of a movie together. You all feel like you're building that community, but there isn't quite that issue with internet connection. And then we put our videos on YouTube as well, as many of our colleagues have done around the nation. But I want to talk a little bit about livestock specific things that we've done. We had two objectives mostly with our livestock connections. One is to keep engaged with specialists outside of 4-H. We have a very strong livestock specialist entity in Missouri, so we wanted to make sure those groups were still involved. And we also wanted to keep our strong ag outreach that we have with schools. This was highlighted in our embryology program. We converted many of the videos, such as beating chick's heart inside of the egg, onto our 4-H Live platform. We also converted some of our handouts, diagrams that helped youth learn about what an egg looks like, what the process of a chick developing inside the egg looks like, and integrated some hands-on activities, everything from letting the youth do it at home to watching us highlight some of our activities in the videos themselves. And so embryology was one that we converted very early on, again, to keep that strong connection to our livestock specialists who actually did this hosting, and then being able to connect with those schools that were also in a very weird transition at that time. So good to reach out to our teachers and let them know we could still provide that programming. So I will hand it over to Ty to tell you a little bit about another activity that we did.
Thank you, Chelsea. So besides embryology and focusing on our classroom settings, we also wanted to make sure that we were empowering our members in our livestock project areas who were kind of struggling with how are we going to meet meet or for our projects, since we're not going to actually be in person, or what will that look like? So we wanted to make sure that we were also, in this diverse offering we had, offering some opportunities that might be based in specific project areas, but then also trying to reference back where, if members were interested in learning more, or even if they were focused on a specific project area, they could find a curriculum on our website or in another website and dig more into that on their own for a little bit more independent learning. So here on the left side of the screen is kind of the post that went with a swine identification on ear notching, a video that I did. What's kind of neat about these is you can pivot and do it on any kind of a device. It's actually one I had to do off my cell phone in my own kitchen. And basically the whole purpose is to make these interactive, giving simple supplies and supply lists that our members could have at hand before, and they can work along with you. So being very interactive, trying to pause and take time for questions. But that was kind of this big key, is to still have some interaction through it all. So with that, if anybody has any questions, like I said, so far we've had a good success, I think, with as our metrics will show, with our 20 videos to date that kind of have a wide project variety range, obviously, about 30,000 views overall for those. Any questions? If not, we'll pass it on back to Lupita or Wade.
I just want to finish the conversation. Part is like, if you saw the number of views for each live, it's just amazing how many kids we can reach using this technology. It's like for Missouri, I have around 60,000 kids enrolling for H, and in just one day with one video, I reach Missouri members. So the potential of this kind of technology is just amazing. So I just want to come back. We cannot come back the same way that we left before the COVID-19. We need to come back stronger, and we need to come back with technology. Blake and Chelsea, they are just amazing, and they don't have an intention to move to another state.
All right, thank you so much, all of you from Missouri. Appreciate your sharing. Wanted to now introduce Casey Mull, State Program Leader from Purdue Extension, to share and introduce their presenters from Purdue. And then Wisconsin will be on deck.
Thank you so much.
Right.
Thank you so much, Wade. I certainly want to thank the Missouri team as well for presenting. Want to wish all of you a happy Smith-Lever Day. It was 106 years ago that Woodrow Wilson signed the Smith-Lever Act, so certainly want to celebrate the birth of an anniversary of cooperative extension today. It's my pleasure to introduce Courtney Stierwalt, who is an animal program specialist in the 4-H office at Purdue Extension and Purdue University. She and a couple of other team members have worked to help virtualize our county fairs. A little bit of background about 2/3 of the county fairs in Indiana are coordinated by 4-H entities. About 1/3 of our county fairs are coordinated by external boards, and 4-H is an invited guest at those. As we look ahead towards the summer, we have virtualized some of our 4-H experiences that are at the county fair, of that showing experience. And later next week, we will make the determination and share for what will occur with our July events. So Courtney and a team at Purdue has already rolled out this opportunity for our educators as they work with their fair boards to plan these virtual experiences. Courtney.
All right, well, thank you, Casey. As Casey mentioned, definitely not something that I thought I'd be working on at the beginning of the year, but definitely a necessity during this time. And I was just having a conversation earlier. I think given this set of circumstances we've been dealt, it's been really unifying and interesting to see all the initiatives throughout the 4-H program whether it's our state or your state that are out there. So I just commend all of my peers on all of their efforts, as I think we're all doing the best we can with the hand of cards we've been dealt. So I'm going to share with you the specifics on what our virtual program looks like here in Indiana. I'll give you a little bit of background. So my role is to work specifically with the animal science initiatives, and a big part of what I do is facilitate and oversee the 4-H livestock and companion animal shows at the Indiana State Fair. So through that experience, I have lots of ideas, but also when I'm not doing that during the summer, traditionally I'm helping counties work through individual fair issues and things of that nature as well. So definitely had a lot of thoughts in mind as we started this process, and I'm going to share with you kind of how we got to where we are today. So back when this first started, at the end of March, I kind of felt the need to start researching some virtual opportunities. I didn't know we were going to be where we're at today, but definitely glad that I had an inkling to kind of start pursuing some different avenues. So the first model that I personally researched was the North Carolina state model. I reached out to Brent Jennings. North Carolina, as many of you know, was a pioneer in this process because they had events happening in March and that they needed to have an outlet for. So Brent kind of explained to me that the easiest plunge for them was to go into the Google format for their market species at the time that are being analyzed. So that's their beef, sheep, swine, and they decided to use Google Forms to capture that information. From there, they take that information and they put it in a Google slide format, and they have judges for those particular projects sort through the Google slides to make assessment. One thing to note about the NC State model is that this is their statewide model, in that they are not having individual county events. So if you're a part of that process, you are actually at this point in time submitting your information for that state show. So they've been able to hire some pretty affluent judges for this event because, again, it's their statewide project. They're not individual county focused. The next outlet here in Indiana, we have, of course, being in the Midwest, like all of you are for the most part, we have lots of access to different show services. So auction companies, online show entities. So of course I looked at some of those. The virtual stock show is the group that puts on the Next Level Livestock camps. If you're familiar with them, they're actually based out of Arizona. They have been commonly used for some events here locally, and I've heard of states and other entities pursuing their services. With that, of course, they do come with a fee. There are others here in Indiana, like the Walton Webcast. Showworks was another one, of course, that some folks use as well. And then the last one was Ranch House Designs, that again kind of responded quick to what was occurring in the nation and started having these shows. Great services. They do a lot of the legwork for you, but of course they do come with the cost, as they should, when someone else is doing all of that for you. And then lastly, here in Indiana, we have been 4-H online users for roughly, I want to say, close to 6 years now. And as a part of that, we also buy into the premium package of fair entry. So as we sat down to have a discussion about what we were going to do, Kara Harbison is our 4-H online and fair entry specialist, and Tony Carroll, who I know all of you know probably. We sat down and had a discussion, and some common things came up. Client familiarity. We want a product that, if possible, our clients are familiar with. 4-H online fair entry meets that criteria for us. Accessibility. So a big concern for us is that we have no face-to-face events until at least the end of June. Again, we're talking next week, a pretty looming deadline, so we'll see where we're at then. So offices being open and educators and staff in those offices being able to help people was something we considered. Internet accessibility. So it's spotty in different areas in Indiana. So even myself, I lived 5 minutes from where I live now. I didn't have internet 5 miles from here. Crazy, but that's just kind of how it is. Equipment. So how can we capture images of livestock? Can we use cameras? Does everybody have access to a camera? Well, in most instances, normally people have access to some kind of digital camera or their phone. I mean, that's the great thing about phones, is that most of them now have a camera of sorts. And then as we talked about deciding which route we wanted to go, equal access was something that was on my brain, because yes, I may be able to take pictures, but maybe I don't have video capability, and maybe I don't have strong enough internet to send or submit videos. And the list goes on of accessibility concerns. Cost, of course, time to prepare, staff, judges, families. We wanted a system. In Indiana, we have parameters and of course, policy and procedure that is expected in every county here, every 92 counties here in Indiana, but we also have a lot of creativity and different opportunities based on the needs of communities. So we wanted something that could easily be adaptable for different classes and different events for our program. And then ultimately, the goal of all of this is, of course, to celebrate that achievement of our 4-H. So with that, an easy winner was for us to use fair entry. Again, we already had that access, so why not? So from there, we just basically went through and kind of on our static as well as our livestock projects, animal projects, we went through and set the expectations of what those exhibits would look like. So for our livestock evaluation, animals, we're looking for 3 images, and images of the front view, the side view, and the rear view. Our suggestions there are prepare your animal as you would for the show ring as well as the exhibitor. So make sure you're dressed the part as well. Taking photos in the landscape mode is something I learned, or horizontally, through my research of these different systems, as well as watching a few of these different shows that have occurred virtually here in the past few weeks. And then also taking photos in a well-lit area, trying to reduce glares, make sure the animal is not standing in tall grass or deep shavings so we can truly see that animal from the ground up. We're asking, of course, photos should not be altered or edited, and we would like to see the 4-H member in those photos. Showmanship is a little bit different. I'll talk more about that, but we are allowing for a little more versatility in what that looks like. So a presentation, a PowerPoint, of an image with an excerpt of what they learned, but we really want to capture what has that 4-H member gathered from that livestock project this year, or that project, and what have they learned about the industry? And there's been lots of lessons on the livestock side of things in the industry in the past few weeks. So this is what 4-H online, or excuse me, fair entry looks like. The nice thing about it is you can truly adapt it to what you want. So this comment over here that says ad control, I do apologize, this isn't the best image, but it's what I captured quickly. So the ad control feature, you can kind of customize it to look whatever you want. So for instance, I've had the question, well, we're thinking more of just doing more of a market show where we show by weights, we're not doing breeds. Absolutely, you can do that. Or we're thinking of having this class in Harrison County, but we're not having it in, Marion County. Okay, absolutely, you can do that. So the nice thing is that you can customize this per county, and each county kind of sets up what that looks like. And then also in adding controls, you can add photos, you can add PDFs, you can add Word documents, and then you can add PowerPoints. I've had some questions about videos. Fair Entry is going to be coming out with a video option, but it is going to look more like where you would embed a link into this part, into this ad control feature, and they would have to post the video via YouTube in order to do so. You can kind of bypass that right now, and you can embed, of course, the video in a PowerPoint, and that doesn't have to be linked to YouTube, so that's something to consider. And then also, as I mentioned, they are working to update that at the moment for video options. Here's what it looks like for the judges. So as you see here, we've kind of just put in a few photos, but the judge can actually click this camera button right here and see all of the images and supporting materials of that particular animal. So they just click that button and they'll go through that individual animal. At the end, if you're choosing to place them, 1, 2, 3, 4, you can do that. Or if you choose just to utilize the Danish method, you can also reward them that way. So pretty user-friendly, not a lot of, we are gonna have a judges training, but not a lot of in-depth technology knowledge has to already happen. So that's nice. And then this is where the results happen. So again, what does that final product look like? Well, in Fair Entry, there's a button that you push that is called Results Publishing, and you just set it up. And once that's turned on, you will have access to a link that you can share via social media networks. However you choose to celebrate your fair, that will kind of be the culminating end goal, is to just provide that link, and then you can see the images that 4-H members share as well. So these are just some common questions that we've had. Photo editing is a concern, and to that I say you can edit a photo, you can edit a video. If you're wanting to edit a video or Photoshop a video for a virtual livestock show or animal show that's replacing a traditional 4-H fair, then I think you probably have bigger worries. We can't control everything, but we've sort of done our best to put a disclaimer on there. And I live in-house with a livestock judge, and as he'll tell you, you can 9 times out of 10 tell when an animal has been photoshopped. So something to keep into consideration. Another thing, I kind of give this plea to our staff: showmanship versus animal evaluation. How do you place them? For showmanship, on a good day, it's hard sometimes to sort those winners. And so I would recommend this year just celebrating the achievement, rewarding them, perhaps giving honor group placings if they've done an exceptional job of providing a product. But I don't know that we necessarily want to compare in that particular event. Animal evaluation, again, up to you up to our staff how they want to do that. Some counties are probably going to try to place them, and then others are probably just going to reward them for their success. Reasons. So how do we capture that information? For that, we have an evaluation sheet that we will be giving each judge. So when judges are sent out their information, they will get this sheet. They will be expected to record comments. Other methods, of course, you could include a Zoom link where you might have a judge just share some general comments at X time, if that's an opportunity that you think would be helpful. Some staff have asked for a point of reference in photos, like, can we require that they all have to be up against a fence? Well, my fences at my farm may look different than the fences at your farm, or vice versa. So again, we have to kind of pick what we're being particular about. And again, bottom line is we're trying to provide an opportunity. Weights, again, monitoring that yourself and deciding what those weights are. We're putting that responsibility on the 4-H member. A judge will, of course, have their opinions on whether that animal is that weight or not when compared to their others in that particular class. Proof of registration, you can add a control to add a registration paper to that link or to that part of Fair Entry if you choose to do that. Another question is, how do you have all the classes and normal events all the classes and events you normally have? Well, you probably don't. So we've been selective with what we have to offer. And that may mean that we don't have we don't have the contesting classes via this format for horse and pony, because there's not really a great way at this point to capture that. We will have an opportunity. But again, some of our counties may be looking at outsourcing some of their virtual opportunities, and that's fine. This is just an opportunity provided. And then lastly, auctions. Fair Entry does have that component available. At this point, that would be more of a question for Tony or Kara. I usually don't have a lot to do with those auctions in the summertime, but we have had some folks interested in utilizing the online auction format capabilities that will be coming out with fair entry. So lastly, I just say, what are your goals of your program? Obviously, we felt like this was the approach that fit for Indiana 4-H, but it's not perfect, but we'll learn a lot along the way, and ultimately we'll have that opportunity for our 4-H members. And let me stop sharing here.
Thank you, Courtney, very, very much. Appreciate that.
You're welcome. Trying to stop sharing. Oh, there we go. I think I had some questions that I was trying not to answer as we're going through.
And Casey did respond back to those, so
awesome.
Appreciate
Thanks.
that. So now we're going to transition to our last presenter for the day, and then after that we'll have an opportunity for breakout Zoom sessions, and then if we have time, we'll have some opportunities to pose questions to the greater group. But so be mindful of our presenters of questions that you have and discuss those with the group going forward. I'd like to introduce Don Danita Fleary-Simmons, who's the 4-H program manager for Wisconsin, to introduce her group, and as they wrap up here in the next 10 minutes or so.
All right.
There she is.
Having a little trouble getting.
Yeah, sorry, Don Danita, we're having some audio connection challenges, so if it's okay, we might have your designees share a little bit, and we'll try their audio.
Hi, this is Bernie. Can you hear me?
Yep, we can hear you.
Okay, so I can start for Wisconsin, and I think there's some others that will join. Do you have the share screen for me by chance?
You should have access to that at the bottom of the Zoom.
Yep. Okay, just a second. Sorry about that.
No worries.
So, good morning. It is still morning, isn't it? So my name is Bernadette O'Rourke, Bernie for short, and I am in the Animal Sciences Department. I am a extension teaching appointment type person, and so a large amount of my work is in the food animal area, so beef, sheep, swine, and meat goats, and then I do have a teaching appointment, as I mentioned, so getting over with classes this week has been somewhat of a godsend amongst all the other things that have been occurring. So Don Danita just asked me to share a bit about what I have been doing related to educational opportunities for our young people in time of being at home and coordinating still some growth and engagement in their projects. And so one thing that we did, I worked with our unit managers and across a few of our research stations here in Wisconsin to provide an opportunity related to, really letting kids know a little bit more about just general commercial agriculture and different ways of agriculture from small to middle to large. And we felt that really showcasing our research units and facilities to help them engage and learn in that way was important. But then also just how do we optimize research and connections to make, basically have a betterment for the Wisconsin residents. So good use of taxpayer money in relation to how we engage with that in the units through research, teaching, and extension. So to quickly move, since I know we have just the 10 minutes, we showcased the sheep unit, which is really a nationally known sheep unit. So lots of different interactions with that unit. We have a shower in, shower out facility with the swine unit that has a surgery suite and other unique things that youth were able to get a handle on. And then we had Arlington Lancaster beef units. So we had calving opportunities all the way from feeding and then close proximities to grazing pastures and that discussion. And then lastly today, quite frankly, if you're bored and at 1 o'clock Central Standard Time, we are going to have the last one, which is the Farm Center, We're going to talk about test plots and more of the agronomy side of things that are important to livestock and animal sciences. But then tour the feed mill and some other neat things related to seeing corn planted on a medium scale, and then corn planted for test plots, and some other neat things. So it's been a really fun project. I'm really grateful for my colleagues in the research units. They have been phenomenal in providing information that scans the audiences. So little kids, all the way to adult producers, all the way from urban, suburban folks to farms. And so to share a little bit of the analytical data that I've collected, some demographics and some others, we had really about 60% of the folks that were on that were from farms, and about 40% of the people were from towns or cities or central cities. So that was exciting to see. Some were project members, some were FFA, and there was a lot of audiences that were not affiliated into our organizations at all. So again, I hope that can really illustrate a lot of what we're trying to do here. So we can share with us. Sorry, I'm reading a chat here. So what we plan to do, I guess, moving forward is continuing with those summary data and connecting with our agri-science teachers. One of the huge benefits to this was that it connected with that audience in this time of teaching from home. So we've got a whole host of ag students that are on this. We did use Zoom to minimize to circumvent the discussion and keep kids engaged in chat. There was some concerns with UW-Madison related to having the units shared over Facebook. So we did not do Facebook Lives in this case, but they are available on YouTube, the recordings, and the recording views are moving, so that's exciting. So lots of engagement, lots of states involved, lots of different participants. I will have to share that, you know, our farm broadcaster in the city of Madison really promoted this. So we got a lot of people, I think, around some of the Madison area. And I got a wonderful email today related to someone who was sharing quite a bit about the demographics, and a retired dairy farmer was really kind of disgruntled with technology, and he was watching the tours with his grandchildren, and he was like plastered to the screen and has been the first person in the chair moving forward for the rest of the tours. So generationally, it's been fun. Retired people and older people have gotten on the board of technology and platforms. So I think that aspect has been neat. I think I will stop sharing, and I don't know if Jason or Joe or if Don Danita's got some audio back connection, but that's what I would share on the livestock side. One other thing that I can share is I refurbished a livestock learning webinar series that I did a few years ago. It was actually a National Animal Science Award winner through the National 4-H Association. And so we refurbished them so they could be reused. And there's been a lot of engagement on those too. So I tried to work smarter and not harder during this time, and a lot of good material we've developed, and just to make it a little bit more user-friendly. So I'll pass it on to my colleagues, unless people have questions or how you'll manage. I can look at the chat too. So thanks for the time. It's been a fun engagement here, and we're looking forward for new ways moving forward.
Okie dokie. All right, Jason, are you on? Because I think you could do a little bit very quickly about sort of the engagement with the Fair Association.
Yeah,
Hey, Joe.
I can just speak a little bit into it. Jason Hostler is our representative for our fair associations, who has been our liaison between Extension and all of the county fair boards in Wisconsin. And so, you know, we have a structure here which gives a lot of our a lot of the coordination power, to the local county fair boards, and Extension's role has been evolving over the past several years to be more of an educational role rather than a coordinating role. Of course, we like to say we have 72 different ways of doing things in Wisconsin, being 72 counties. And so I think a lot of our discussion around how we're going to be coordinating virtual fairs is going to be having to talk about how does Extension's role conflict or integrate well with how the local county fair is going to be organizing their own virtual experience. So we're going to be trying to figure out how we provide options for them and perhaps provide education about the virtual options without actually being careful about how we actually overstep our roles into having our local educators go into coordination and organization roles at the fair. So that's been a large part of our conversation in Wisconsin, trying to balance that role of Extension versus the role of the local fair board. And Jason can speak much more into it than I can if he is on.
Yeah, I mean, I think, thank you, Joe. I think that's helpful. We have posted, an FAQ on our page because we get a lot of questions about the fair and use of the name and emblem and all of those things. We're following, a rollout plan that really has the science of COVID, and our fairs are autonomous, and so they may be following different, whether they want to continue. So we're still hearing kind of on a daily basis whether or not a fair wants to move forward or not, what kinds of planning and support they need from us. Jason is organizing, meeting with them and providing webinars for them on the areas where they need some skill development in order to pull off their fairs should they choose to have them. And, that's sort of the level of support that we're engaged in with them right now as they make the decisions. We are doing, though, a lot of information sharing to help them make those decisions because they're not necessarily all aware of the different sort of legislation and statutes that affect, for instance, weigh-ins or the access issues that were mentioned by the presenter before us in terms of the internet connectivity and all of those different things. And then there's just the costs. So if we build a fair, who's going to come? And are enough people going to believe that it's okay and safe to show up and have a meaningful fair that is lucrative enough to cover the costs, at least, of doing the fair? So they're kind of working their way individually through each of those decision points. And we're trying to help and focus and guide that and keep our focus really on how do we educate and less how do we do the fair. So I think that's all for Wisconsin Wade.
Thanks, Don and Anita. Appreciate it. And thank you for all of your presenters from Wisconsin. Appreciate your efforts. We are going to move now into our breakouts for you to be able to process, because there's really no way to process with 90 some odd people Q&A wise, but we are going to break up into groups of around eight or so moving forward. And then we'll do that for about 10 minutes or so, and then we'll call back for some last comments and conversations. But do appreciate you engaging with each other during this next section. So with that, and this is going to transition us into our classroom. All right, welcome back, everyone. So we really have probably just opportunity for maybe one or two kind of primary questions. So I know this group is not shy at all, but if there'd be somebody who'd like to pose a question in the chat, for one of our presenters to be able to share quickly. I know we're right up at the noon hour, but I'd like to give at least an opportunity for each one of our presenter teams to respond to one question, and we'll definitely post this recording as well. So if there's any questions that you'd like to pose, Anissa, do we have any that you're aware of?
Yeah, so was it a statewide virtual state fair was a question for.
Was that Purdue was talking about that, or?
Yep. Courtney,
Yeah.
you still on?
Yeah, so right now our model is more for the county basis. We will, we're working kind of from deadline to deadline, but this model, should it have to be activated from the indoor project side, will for sure be the 4-H or the fair entry format for virtualization. From the livestock side, because of the other entities that work alongside those particular projects, will probably move towards utilizing more of a, in our state, the Walton webcasting crew will probably handle our larger, more market-based livestock shows.
Great, thanks. Other questions?
Nope, I don't see anything. Okay. Thoughts on use of video? What are quality concerns, especially if just using video for evaluation without bringing together? So yeah.
So we're not promoting the video option just because, again, you have such an array of quality. We felt like the constant control would be to potentially you just have the 3 photos. There are some projects that are going to use video, but it puts it's very hard, as we all know, to send a video or email a video. So if our county our county offices had to inquire that, we'd have to set up different Google Drives and things like that. So we decided that with that kind of being a looming potential issue, we would just take the photo approach. And I know there's a question about NC State. That was a statewide, I don't think that's not their state fair. I believe that's later in the fall, but they're using this system as more of a statewide format. They're not having county fairs. If you want to compete in that potential opportunity, then you're competing statewide using that Google format.
Most projects would be okay to do virtually, but how about foods projects? Has anyone tried any of that?
So Tony Carroll has a great set of things. I will share of expectations for that. We'd be more than willing to share our animal projects as well as our static exhibits to give you an idea of what that looks like. So that'll help answer those questions on the exhibition guide. I'll share it to that Google Drive. Is that right, Wade?
Yes, please.
Okay.
And I'll repost that here in the chat too, so that people can have access to that. And obviously, if you have questions, feel free to let me know.
Yeah, and feel free to email myself. Happy to help. Obviously not an expert in this by any means, but can help you learn from our growing pains as well.
And I'm gonna make sure that we have these resources from both last week's and this week's, and then subsequent weeks, all in that Google Drive option. And then we are also working at K-State to create a landing page for these resources just so that they can be publicly accessible. So appreciate your efforts. I do know I can speak to Andrew was asking about the foods projects. I do know that Karen Blakesley has been working with her most recent virtual training. Maybe you were aware of that, and she's been really encouraged at some efforts going forward. Obviously, it's not the same as in person, but she currently is refining some processes that we'll definitely be sharing as well with the North Central region. She's our Kansas State's food science liaison or specialist in that area. So we're happy to share that as we go forward too. I think lastly,
Purdue willing to share their list of photo and entry guidelines for each project area.
Yep, that'll be on those documents.
great.
I think it's
thank you
actually
also
already in the folder.
Oh, Casey, my apologies.
No worries, Wade. I think those documents are already in the folder that Wade shared the link for.
Absolutely. Well, we want to, again, we're going to wrap it up here. Appreciate everybody's efforts and sharing. It is this is really what I call it, this is cooperative extension, is that we across our states are working together to leverage decision-making as well as idea sharing so that we can do our best to help serve our communities together in fulfilling our youth development mission. So thank you so very much for your efforts. Thank you for your creativity. And thanks for being intentional about helping us think through this. There's multiple facets of it. I've appreciated our presenters today talking about how do we keep incentivizing the learning that we heard through our Wisconsin and Missouri examples. And then also appreciate Purdue sharing a little bit with us about their process of kind of zeroing down to the showcase opportunities within the fair context. Know that as each and every day goes forward, we're able to process that even more. So I encourage that sharing going forward. And again, on these Fridays here in May and potentially into June, we're going to be purposeful in sharing and being generous with each other as we go forward. So with that, next week, we are going to talk about virtual clubs, you know, kind of how do you have group experiences going forward, and sharing best practices around those from colleagues across the North Central region as well, and invite you to consider being a part of that as well. We will let you know next week when we get this archived and up on the website so that you can share with your colleagues as well. So appreciate your time, your efforts, and your continued vigilance in our youth development mission. So hope you have a great weekend, and we'll talk to you soon. Thanks.